presented.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to recognitions. See, I'll plow through them.
I was gonna say, I think you could take turns
Yep,
rotating.
we can do it. I'll take the first one. Congratulations to the 522-2024, the 522-2024 graduates from the Brainerd High School, Brainerd Learning Center, Lincoln Education Center, and Graduation Equivalency Diploma programs. It was a little chilly down on the football field, but we had a good old time graduating those kids a couple weeks ago. That was great. Congratulations to the Warrior Boys Golf Team for their Section 8 AAA team runner-up finish, and to Marty Timmons and Brady Osland for qualifying for the 2024 MSHSL State Tournament. Take that other one.
Congratulations to the Warrior Girls Golf Team for their Section 8 4A team runner-up finish, and to Sophia Karsnia for qualifying for the 2024 Minnesota State High School League State Tournament. And congratulations to the 2024 State Track and Field State Qualifiers, Ty Nelson, triple jump and long jump, Cora Clow, high jump, Joe Smith, pole vault, Dylan Gross, shot put and discus, Kyle Peterson in the 110-meter hurdles, Natalie Smith in the 300 hurdles, Brandon Stark in the 800-meter, and Brooke Wenz, Maddie Miller, Annalise Baird, Sophia Blank in the 4x800 relay, Carter Mielke, Leif Hoffman, Lance Hastings, and Brandon Stark in the 4x800 meter relay.
Thank you. And I think we'll defer the last four to Dr. Hahn, since this is her last chance to read some recognitions.
Okay, well, I get to read the exciting ones.
Yes.
So we have 4 state champions, 3 state champions, 4 state titles. So congratulations to Cora Clow for being the Class AAA high jump state champion. We had Ty Nelson. He is the Class 3A triple jump champion. And 2-time state champion Dylan Gross in both shot put and discus. And I believe Dylan had some record-breaking throws. I was looking at Jack. He's tucked behind the thing. And I don't know that I should read number 4, but I sure can.
I'll read number 4.
Okay.
More to come on this later in the meeting, but for now, we will say congratulations to Superintendent Dr. Heidi Hahn on her retirement. This is her official last school board meeting. Thank you for all of your years of service to Brainerd Public Schools.
Thank you.
All right, next up is public input. This time, a member of the public can address the board. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Complaints or allegations against students or employees may not be discussed due to data privacy. Complaints or allegations must be submitted in writing to Superintendent Hahn. The Board of Education and Superintendent will not converse with guests to address the topics discussed at this time, which is one sole topic, the soulful stylings of Mr. Wade Hopajoki. Come on up.
Soulful stylings, I like it.
I almost didn't make it. The train almost had me. My name is Wade Hopajoki. I just completed my 24th year at the Lincoln Education Center as the lead special ed teacher. And first of all, Heidi, LEC will miss you, and the staff really enjoyed you. So I wanted to start that. Lincoln just finished up our school year. We had an end of a year celebration carnival. We had a dunk tank, popcorn, snow cones. 90 plus students participated in that. 18 to 22-year-olds on the transition side, and then 2nd through 12th grade on the behavioral academic needs side, and our care and treatment program helped run the entire carnival. And a big shout out, my principal, Amy Jordan, for supporting our crazy ideas and endeavors, and she does a great job. Also, we had graduation. We had 2 separate graduations. Our Atlas program, we had 10 graduates, and Director Ward was there. I didn't see anybody else, so there is some consequences for next year, DJ. You were voted on because of your name, DJ. You're gonna be in our dunk tank for next year. So you can't respond to that. There's no communication here. And RJ. So there you go.
What's the date?
I can't respond to you, remember? Public forum. All right. Anyways, so I just wanted to say, those are celebrations for Lincoln Education Center. Reminder, we are a separate site school. We meet kids on their journey. We transition them into the community, and help them be successful adults. And again, back to Dr. Hahn, thank you for your support for our program, and hopefully moving forward, the new soup will support our crazy endeavors over there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Wade. All right, we will move on, roll on through to approval of minutes from the regular school board meeting on May 13th.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Spear to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we have special school board meeting from June 4th, the meetings for that.
All motion?
Minutes, okay.
Second.
All right, motion from Director Brecken with a second from Director Spear. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next up is the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
And the motion loads are pretty heavy tonight with
Yeah.
three motioning board members. Director
I
Brecken.
should be abstaining from the PSEO contract.
Okay,
Is that, we don't have a quorum then, right?
Correct. You're abstaining.
Because
no, Wade, you can't talk anymore.
the college.
I think you're okay.
Okay, all right.
I think she's okay.
I'm okay,
And Ray,
all right,
you
perfect.
should be
No
good.
conflict of interest?
No.
Okay.
He's retired, right?
No,
Nice.
he's still
But
working.
it's,
Okay, so
We're
given
not
that we don't have to
serving
pull
any
that out, then we're
self-interest.
okay, we think?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have the motion on the table from Director Spear, second from Director Donnellinger. Those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next we have approval of unrequested leave of absence information. Angie Bennett. Is it good? We don't need to present? It was just. I mean, I looked at it. Did everybody else look at it? Sorry, we had you listed down there.
Startled me.
It's kind of a full agenda, so we're a little,
I know, and you're whipping through it, which I love. So, we had an unrequested leave of absence. Basically, the reason this happened is there was a position that had an extended 19 days added to the assignment. That position was eliminated due to the licensure. There wasn't another 19-day extended day assignment. So in kind of discussions with the union, it fit under the unrequested leave of absence. So she's received a preliminary notice being brought to you for approval. And then we will continue to, as assignments change or increase, look at her licensure information and see if we can give those additional days back to her based on seniority.
thanks for the additional color. Any other questions for Director Bennett? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the unrequested leave of absence.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Brecken with a second from Director Donnellinger. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye, please.
I think it's a roll.
Oh, it's a roll call. Yep, I already missed the first one. Yay, look at me.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
DJ Donnellinger,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Kevin Boils.
Yes. All right, next up, we have the approval of the administration recommendation to issue a 24-25 contract to the following certified staff members, resulting in the granting of tenure. Dr. Hahn.
You will see a lengthy list of students, we've been so focused on students, on our staff that have met the requirements and have been in good standing through the evaluation process and are being recommended for tenure.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Spear and a second from Director Brecken. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I will add one more thing. When we're working through teacher shortages and a time in education where fewer and fewer people seem to be entering the profession, the list before you is really an exciting and wonderful, high-quality list of educators in our system. So I'm very excited that they have chosen Brainerd Public Schools and continue to work with us. So,
Cool.
and in teacher role, being tenured is a really big honor, so.
Okay, so the motion carried. Here, now the fun ones begin. So we start with the annual ACOMP report.
Okay, the ACOMP program for District 181. What is ACOMP? This was a law that was passed by Minnesota in 2005 called QComp. In Brainerd, we just call it ACOMP for alternative compensation. Professional learning structure for our teachers and staff, I should say, not just teachers. The purpose of ACOMP is to improve student learning, and that's done through retaining highly qualified teachers, utilizing those highly qualified teachers to support other teachers in their classrooms, and then to encourage all of our teachers to improve their knowledge and instructional skills to assist our student learning. The agreement for ACOMP is between 3 governing boards: the school board, the Education Minnesota Brainerd, the union, and then MDE also. The ACOMP leadership team, also known as ACLT, is a governing board of 6 members, 3 teachers and 3 administrators, 1 from each level. And then there are also ex officio members, the teaching and learning director, ACOMP coordinator, and the union president. They do meet once a month to manage the program, the ACOMP program, and facilitate those things. There are 4 state requirements to the component. One of them is peer coaching and mentoring, professional development, which is done through PLCs, career ladder positions for our teachers, and then performance pay and salaries, which are paid out through those stipends for those positions, the participation, and then the site goals. So what does this look like in Brainerd? In our peer coaching and mentoring, all teachers are assigned either a peer coach or a mentor, and they meet 1 to 3 times a year through conferences or observation cycles. And all of our teachers next year will also be doing 1 reverse observation, so they'll go in and observe another teacher in their classroom. This compensation is 66% of the program, which is $1,200. And then the second part is PLCs, which our teachers meet every week for 45 minutes, or they meet bi-weekly for 90 minutes. Looking at student data, and that data will drive their curriculum and their instructional practices. That makes up 33% of their augmentation, which is $600. And the third part of things is the site level goal. They set a site level goal at the CIP retreat in August, and that represents less than 1% of their augmentation. So total participation is 1,801 for each participant. The 4th requirement is career ladder positions. We have 2 trainers for peer coaching and mentors, so we pay 2 people for that training. And then we have a number of leadership positions. There's a chart on the left there for the peer coaches, how many peer coaches and mentors we have, curriculum leaders, and then the PLC leaders also. All of these people are trained through our peer coach trainers. The financial part of the ACOMP program, this is an approved program that receives $260 per student. Of that, $169 is state aid, and then $91 per student is board approved levy. That money supports teacher stipends for the leadership positions, our training that we do, part of the salary for the ACOMP coordinator, part of the salary for our secretary, and then the elementary staff development curriculum specialist. This is the ACLT approved proposed budget. The preliminary carryover from this year right now is looking at about $100,000. So you estimate it at 1.598 for next year, and then you can see in the chart the categories and the allocation that's being proposed for next year. Recommendations for 24-25 to continue to have professional learning for leaders and staff following the MTSS, and then having developing instructional practices and giving the tools and structures for our teachers to be able to meet those instructional practices. Any questions?
What percent of teachers are in the SEN?
Almost every teacher.
Almost every teacher.
I think they're, can I answer that? I don't know. I mean, it's very few.
I think there's 1 or 2 teachers that choose to opt out. However, the requirements of PLCs and the mentoring is statutory, so they're still going through that. They just have
still do
opted out of the compensation. And they're not participating in the leadership positions. But it's very rare.
If you're a peer leader, how many staff do you support?
It
Roughly,
varies. Some
okay.
people only have 1. Some people will take 5, depending on, I think,
Okay,
we try to match them up with their craft,
okay,
so that they're supporting like people within their area. And so there might be a couple people that they take on, and some people don't want to do any, so then they take on a few more people. But it does vary. Any other questions? The last step is the request for the school board to approve the continuation of the ACOMP program.
Very good. Any other questions for them?
Thank you for working through this. I know it's been a labor of love, maybe?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's easy to do because it's a program I really believe in, so.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
and I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion from Director Skier with a second from Director Brecken to approve the resolution for the ACOMP annual report as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
PJ Donlin,
Yes?
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Kevin Boyle,
Yes.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes,
all in favor?
Thank you.
Why do we have to roll call everything?
Oh, they're resolutions, so
Resolution.
specific, resolutions specifically have to be roll call.
And it's fun.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
that too. All right, next up is the annual comprehensive literacy plan update. I guess it doesn't include speaking.
Say that 3 times fast. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hun, it's my pleasure to share with you the highlights of our literacy plan for this year, and to tell you some upcoming events for next year, and ask for your approval for what our plans are for next year. We've had a very busy year this year. We've started implementing fast bridge reading assessments in grades 2 through 12. Next year, we will add kindergarten and first grade. A companion to that is some work that will be happening in pre-K with TS Gold, and connecting the work that we're doing in pre-K to kindergarten. Our word study group concluded their work and presented their recommendations to DAC. Their work will be implemented next year. Our literacy humanities coordinator started today. She promised to come back to work tomorrow. She is going to be amazing and is super excited about the work that we have planned for her. We've created a training plan for phase 1 and phase 2 teachers, which means the phase 1 teachers will be doing structured literacy training next year for Brainerd. That's about 390 teachers. All of our elementary teachers, 5th and 6th grade teachers, and K-12 special education teachers, in addition to our early childhood teachers, will be participating in phase 1. We have about 15 cohorts of teachers that will be doing that training in groups of about 25-ish, depending on their group, and in vertical teams. So pre-K folks will be training with kindergarten teachers, first grade teachers will be training with second grade teachers, third grade teachers will be training with fourth grade teachers, and on and on. The phase 2 teachers will be starting literacy training the following year. For next year, they will be doing some pre-learning around MTSS, learning about data literacy and some of those prerequisite skills that will be of particular help for our secondary colleagues who might not have as a robust background in literacy as some of our elementary colleagues do. Our leadership cohort started the structured literacy training in May. They've done the first of 9 modules. They'll do the second module next week and the third module in August so that they will be well prepared to support teachers who start the training modules back to school week. We've provided training for our K-1 elementary teachers and our elementary special ed teachers on that FastBridge early reading assessments. Just last week, we had a great time with teachers. And as we've talked about with those of you that are on our DAC committee, we've selected new English language arts curriculum for our Forest View special education programs that aligns with the structured literacy approach. So it's been a very busy year. It's even hard to spit it out. A few data points for you. Ryan, am I doing this or are you doing this? I'm doing this. Okay, all right. A few data points for you to just highlight some of what our students have accomplished this year. In kindergarten, looking at where students left us at the end of the year, we had 73% of our students who were at or above grade level, which means they were reading at or above a level D, which probably doesn't mean much unless you're a kindergarten teacher. So a level D would be text that has a lot of simple 3-letter words, cat, dog, those kinds of words, and some words that you see often in print that you can recognize by sight, but not as predictable as you would imagine. At the beginning of the year, kindergartners are reading things like, my mom said, and then one word changes at the end of the sentence. By the end of kindergarten, students that are in the green and the blue zone can read less predictable text. They can also retell you what happens at the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the story that they're reading independently. So those are pretty sophisticated skills for a kindergartner. We have 16% of our kindergartners approaching that benchmark, which means almost 90% of our students are on track for being ready for the expectations for first grade. And we can already start making plans for the students that are not yet at that benchmark. The end of first grade, students are expected to read at a level J, which is 6 more levels that they accomplished through that first grade year. There's a lot of things that change in a reader in kindergarten and first grade. Lots of developmental changes. Students who are in that green and blue zone would be reading simple paragraphs, would be reading a combination of fiction and nonfiction texts, would be able to choose books that they want to read by choice, and can tell more detailed responses to what it is that they're reading, give you some specific examples, and even go back in the text and tell you exactly where they can answer a question from. So those are, again, some pretty important skills to get ready for the next grade level. Again, we have a few students that are not quite yet reading at grade level, but we can already start programming for those students and are ready to make plans to do so for next year. Our FastBridge data for grades 2 through 12 in our universal screening data shows fall, winter, and spring snapshots. And the goal is to have more students in green and blue in spring than in red and yellow. And we've accomplished that. You'll see that those green and blue bars go up and the red and yellow bars go down. That means students are moving along that trajectory to being at or above grade level.
So for this slide in particular, this is FastBridge?
FastBridge,
And
yeah.
for the prior 2 slides, where does that data come from?
That comes from our BAS testing.
Okay. I guess that's what it says at the top, but
Yep.
can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so BAS testing is an individually administered assessment where students are reading orally, one-on-one with their teacher. And they're reading a variety of passages to see what is their capacity for understanding text at varying degrees of difficulty. They read to until they are using and confusing text, so to speak, where they're no longer able to make progress in a level. And those are what we use right now currently in kindergarten and first grade. In second grade through 12th grade, the A reading assessment is a computer adaptive test. So students are taking those individually on a computer. And the test will be adaptive. So if a student answers a question correctly, they get a more difficult question. If the students answer a question incorrectly, they'll either get a question at the same level to like try it again, or they'll get an easier question. So we have about 8 million students a year that take FastBridge assessments, so the N size for FastBridge is pretty reliable. This is the same slide you saw last year for MCAs. We don't have our MCA data to share yet this year. We're excited to see what our trend will be going forward, knowing all of the work that we've been doing in literacy this year and all that we're planning to do next year with our phase 1 training. It's really exciting to think about the possibility of having all of our teachers doing all of the same training and developing some common language around literacy instruction. We really think that's going to be a positive benefit to our staff and also to our students. So just to recap, we've done some initial training for early reading. We'll be administering those FastBridge early reading assessments to kindergarten and first grade starting this fall. We'll continue to provide guidance and support for school and district leaders about structured literacy, which is the language in the READ Act. We used to talk a lot more about the science of reading. We've now moved on to talking about structured literacy just to be consistent with what it says in the legislative language and evidence-based practices, so that we're using those highly reliable teaching strategies to make sure that all of the hard work that our teachers are doing benefits students the most. Our MTSS plan has us prioritizing Tier 1 instruction, which is that classroom instruction, or sometimes referred to as the first best instruction for every student every day. And then we will champion and support that phase 1 OLA training for our certified staff who will be participating in phase 1. Not all of this is new information for you. You have seen parts and pieces of this, but I am happy to stand for questions and then ask you for your approval.
Refresher, updated MCAs, those scores, you'll get those in August, but they're embargoed until right before the school year starts. Do I have that right?
That is usually the timeline, correct?
Okay, so we'll know what those reading scores look like late this summer. Other questions for Dr. Ross?
You talked about the training cohorts that are meeting together. What does that training look like? Is it virtual? Is there someone on site? Is it a combination of self-instruction?
All of the above. So there are 9 modules, so each of the in-service days that have been are part of our calendar, teachers will work through a module. And some of them are self-directed. There are components that teachers need to do individually. Most of it is done as a group within their cohort. And there are also times where there would be a facilitator from OLA attending virtually or in person. We will have CCC leaders, teaching and learning staff who will also be available in person to provide guidance and support if cohorts are asking for that. Our leadership team who has done the advanced training will also be facilitating some of that learning as well. It looks a lot like a graduate level online course if you look at the interface that we work through. Some of us, Heidi can probably speak to that more than I can because I've seen it a few times now. It was probably new to some of our people to what they were expecting it to look like. It's not like a regular PD session. It looks much more comprehensive. And so they work through each of the modules, each of the components, and then at the end of the cumulative learning, they'll have the body of work that they've completed to use as a resource.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment. You know, we all know the importance of early learners making progress, and I'm so impressed with the kindergarten scores to have 50% exceeding.
I know.
It's really, really something, so good work.
Yeah, the kindergarten teachers work really hard to make that happen. And our kindergartners do too. We know we've done a good day's work when our kids go home as tired and sweaty as we do.
What does exceeding mean?
Means that they're reading above that grade level expectation.
So
So,
that's just up to, if I'm the teacher and I'm having them read to me, I just kind of slot them.
well, we have standardized assessments that we use. So like when I was talking about D is the expectation at the end of kindergarten, if they're reading at an E or an F or a G, that's that blue area. And we have assessments to determine which level they're at.
Is this the redact training that we're doing? Is that what?
It is, yes.
So did we get the grant for that?
We did not get the grant, but we do have some money available from MDE to help offset some of the cost. There was some change in legislative language this year, so we're not exactly sure what the total compensation available from MDE is going to be.
They don't know either. Don't feel bad.
They don't know either, okay, sure. But we do know that there will be some monies available. And we were directed in the READ Act about which teachers needed to be included in phase one. So that's why we have such a large number in
Gotcha.
phase one.
This is a really broad question, so answer it as best you can. But how much of this work that's been done recently on this, as you've been implementing all of this, has been, you know, would you categorize as like a 180 from what we used to do pre-READ Act versus additive to what we were already doing, like if you can characterize it?
I would say very little of it is a 180. If I had to put a rough estimate on it, I would say 80% of it is additive. The foundation was already there, already great things in place. But it is unprecedented across the state for people to have common learning across the district for literacy training. So that would be something that was new. Not necessarily a 180, but I don't know of any district that I've worked with that has built their whole school calendar, their in-service days, around literacy training prior to the READ Act.
Any other questions for Director Ross?
No, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Brecken to approve the comprehensive literacy plan. Again, I did that, as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next up is our K-4 media technology curriculum. Robert and Christina.
Hello, Christina Lundgren, and thank you for the opportunity to share about the K-4 media technology curriculum revisions. Our K-4 media teachers worked over the course of the year with some support from Sourcewell to do some revisions to their curriculum map. So that is what we are going to take a look at this evening. So just a little grounding for the group around the rationale around the STEM, computer science, technology standards. Currently, the state of Minnesota does not have standalone computer science standards, but they are beginning to embed or integrate computer science skills as they develop new content area standards. So for example, science is implementing new standards this fall. There are some computer science components integrated into those standards. Long-term, there is a computer science working group through the state of Minnesota that is looking at what this might look like long-term in terms of how to support teachers around professional learning, around computer science skills and teaching, and then whether or not we want to move forward with any computer science standards for the state of Minnesota. Locally, we did have a curriculum map started for this group of students, but there was some inconsistencies across the different elementary schools. So we really wanted to work on providing a consistent learning experience for all students, regardless of what elementary school they attended, and then just really refined the curriculum map so it wasn't just only productivity skills, but looking more at some of the skills around digital citizenship, computational thinking, and then some of the problem-solving skills around technology learning. Long-term, we are hoping to expand into the 5th and 6th grade so that we'd have some vertical alignment K-6 in the skill building. So the process that the team used last school year, they did a crosswalk between ISTE standards. So ISTE stands for the International Standards for Technology Education, and that was the broad framework that we used as a foundation for our curriculum map. And then we layered underneath that the foundational technology skills, which were already present in their current curriculum map. From there, they looked at some learning progressions of how this learning would develop across a K-4 sequence for students. We developed a scope and sequence, and then we looked at kind of along the same lines as the portrait of a graduate, developing a portrait of an elementary technology graduate. So what were those key skills that all of those elementary students would have moving into their first few years? And then moving forward into next year, the plan is to implement our technology units and do some evaluation and revisions over the course of the year, and then develop what the report card assessments would be for the following school year. So this is just a look at the ISTE standards. So these again are the kind of the basis, the framework that we built our curriculum map on. All of the grade levels touch on each of these standards except for 1.7, which is global communicators or collaborator. We did not add any of those skills at the elementary level. The team thought that those skills would be something that would be embedded as students moved into Forest View for middle school and then into the high school. So again, we looked at that crosswalk between the ISTE standards and then the supporting technology skills. So our curriculum map, this is just a snapshot of what that looks like. So at the top is the ISTE standard component, and then underneath that, there's a subset of skills that build what that, so for example, what a digital citizen would look like. And then underneath that, we layered what those supporting technology skills or technology productivity skills would be. And then from there, they did those learning progressions. So when would a student be beginning some exposure around that skill? When would they be developing that skill? So there would be some guided instruction and practice opportunities. And then when would the student be expected to be solid in their learning around that skill? So then from there, the team worked on developing the pacing guide or the scope and sequence. And so just some planning considerations that the team had to work around is that on average, this learning occurs 25 minutes per week at each grade level. So it is a small portion of a student's learning during the week. They did want to try to connect to the classroom learning, so those integrated computer science skills that might be occurring in reading or in science or in social studies or in math. They wanted to connect their learning to that so they could support what was happening with classroom learning. And then they developed for their scope and sequence across the year, they looked at a standard focus, and then they identified a topic or theme, and they wanted to be consistent with that across the grade levels. So for example, in October and November, at all grade levels, the focus would be on digital citizenship would be the focus, and then that's really the topic and theme that they would do. And then lastly, there are some things for those technology skills that are really going to be infused across the entire year. So coming back to that digital citizenship piece, there is a primary focus of intentional learning in October and November, but those skills are also layered in over the course of the year. So as students maybe do some research or they're designing a project, what are those citizenship considerations that we need to bring to the forefront also? And I think that's actually it. Sorry, that was very quick. Any questions at this point before we move on to the approval request?
So, who all worked on the development of this, and it's all using ISTE materials and standards and resources mostly?
Correct, yep. So this was the K4 media technology teachers. So from each of the elementary schools worked on it. And then we had a team from Sourcewell, from their Tech Mobile technology team that came and supported the team with their work periodically over the course of the year also.
This is really outstanding stuff. I mean, especially against the context, I'm sure you know this number, Christina, but do you know where Minnesota as a state ranks in terms of computer science in our schools?
Well, we were 50th. I think we moved up to 49, maybe. But yes, we were 50th. Yeah. So the computer science, they have that 10-year plan. So maybe at some point
They've got 10-year plans for lots of things.
we'll have something more robust, but yes.
No, this is great. Questions for Christina?
The thing that I loved about this, and I think it was mentioned at DAC, is, you know, all of these elementary kids kind of converge onto the middle school, and they come, you know, with lots of tools, and you get assigned a paper and have to do some research, and it depends on where you were on whether or not that was something that landed on your desk and got in front of you. So I love the consistency this brings, especially for the middle school folks as they see all of those kids come together, but for all the kids, just to have something that's charted out like this, I think is great.
I feel like we should have digital citizenship as a graduation requirement.
Yeah, this is great.
It's important.
It is. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the K4 media technology curriculum as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, well, you get to stay there because we still
You
have
guys
K
are-
5 through 8 math curriculum. I'm sorry. Actually, you don't get to leave for quite a while yet. You just switch chairs.
It's been a busy year.
I feel like you should have like, you know, like a hat or something you put on.
So my name is Robin Knutson, 31 years in Brainerd Public Schools, so I have been here a long time. Currently, my role is the District Media Center Coordinator, but I also support both math and science teachers 512 in science and math implementation and curriculum and instruction. So that's what I'm doing here right now, is to just kind of talk a little bit about math curriculum at the middle school, and then we'll move on to science at the high school. So right now, Minnesota is still working on our 2007 standards in math. The new standards are waiting for approval. And so it was kind of a strange time to be looking at curriculum, but our curriculum at the middle school, which is digits, is nearing its end of lifespan. And so we needed to provide our teachers and our students with something to bridge the gap over the next few years. So we, over the last year and a half actually, I've been working with the math teachers at Forest View to kind of outline what are the goals needed for this curriculum and what are the things that they're looking for the students in math. So these were the program goals outlined: to build capacity to deliver Minnesota math standards to all students by utilizing a common instructional model that fosters a progressive of skills Just to note, right now, we have 5th grade using a curriculum, 6th and 7th grade using a different curriculum, and 8th grade using something else. So that was really our focus, is to really start vertically aligning our system 5-8 with the middle school. Deliver a vertically aligned math curriculum in the middle school that meets the needs of our students, utilize a high-rated foundational math curriculum that embeds opportunities for differentiation and MTSS support, and provides a cohesive professional development to all 5-8 math teachers that align with the standards and curriculum goals. And it connects students to real-world application, which was really important. So we actually piloted 2 curriculums this year. I worked with illustrative math, and then we did reveal math. And we really spent a lot of time digging deep into both curriculums. I really insisted that teachers spend more than 6 weeks, which is a typical pilot in any district. Some districts aren't even spending time doing that at all. St. Paul just adopted something and they didn't even pilot anything to see what their teachers thought of that. So we really spent a lot of time looking into all of the components to see how this met the needs of our students. One of the things that we also look at is ed reports and how does it score, and it meets all of the alignments and scored for focus and coherence and rigor and balance and practice content, connection and instructional supports and usable indicators for our students. One of the things that I created was a rubric. And so when I met with the math teachers, we kind of outlined the rubric. We wanted to make sure it was aligned to the standards, that it was coherent, it was relevant to our students here, provided some differentiation, assessment, and technology integration. So in this rubric, this was sent out at the end of each pilot. And it was sent to the pilot teachers. And by the way, we had 8 out of the 15 teachers in our building pilot. That is a really good number because it's a lot to take on a pilot. So we got a really good success rate with our teachers. 5-8, we had somebody in each grade level, if not 1 or 2, really digging deep and collectively working together. They were phenomenal. I'm just so proud of the work that they did. But anyway, they received the rubric at the end of the first pilot, and they scored that rubric independently. They didn't collectively come together. I wanted them to write down and capture their own thoughts and feelings about the pilot itself. And then after the second pilot, they filled out that same rubric, and the score from that pilot is what determined that they wanted reveal. So that was what they picked according to the rubric. So the instructional model for reveal has 2 pathways. And I just want to point this out because the first pathway is activity-based, and the second pathway is a guided exploration. And in our strategic plan, our Warrior Way, it talks about kids having opportunities, grit, and accountability. And in the activity-based exploration, it provides opportunity for our students, problem-based activities that promotes productive struggle. Students explore concepts. Students decide on which strategies to use to build student agency. The grit, students who believe that mistakes can help them become better in math are willing to take risks and try different problem-solving strategies. Strong identity and agency as a doer of math leads to growth mindset, perseverance, and never give up. And then accountability, reflection on learning. That helps drive accountability and the opportunity to think about their thinking. Students reflect on both understanding of the math lesson and mathematical thinking. I went to school a long time ago. I did math in the classroom where I was doing the algorithm of what the teacher was telling me to do. This fosters communication and has kids talking about their thinking in math. It also provides differentiation, targeted interventions, and McGraw-Hill Plus, which provides some opportunities for intervention for our students. Now, I'm going to show you, here's how a lesson might go. 7 people go out for dinner in a restaurant. They need to split the tab evenly between them. The total bill was $119. How much did each person pay? So this is a real standard benchmark right from our Minnesota state standards. And you can see that through the activity base or the guided exploration or practice and reflection, students can navigate this. The activity base allows students to explore concepts using models or manipulatives to explain their thinking around equal groups. Guided exploration, teachers discuss with the students the meaning of equal groups, and then students now have the opportunity for practice and reflection. That provides students with practice and self-reflection of their learning. Now, when we talk about that practice and reflection, we come to that word accountability. That teaches students that mistakes are opportunities for growth, and it kind of helps them navigate their learning. So, before I ask for your approval, I would like to share a couple of quotes from some 6th graders, what they thought about this curriculum. I enjoyed the math labs that we did, and when we did notice and wonders about different questions, each lesson starts off with kids having to ask, what do you notice and what do you wonder about a scenario? I enjoyed being able to use the whiteboards. I really enjoyed having the privilege instead of just paper and pencil. I enjoyed working in groups the most. I enjoyed it because I liked hearing other people's inputs or problems so we can put our ideas together and figure it out. My favorite thing about math this year was like all those little questions like notice and wonder. So I am asking for the approval of Reveal Math for students in middle school 5-8.
So I have a question, Robin. And this might be a really dumb question, but what does it mean when a curriculum is nearing the end of its usable lifespan?
So the company's done. It's no longer,
Okay,
it's just no longer in service.
okay.
Yeah. So
You need to move on and.
like we will not have access to anything anymore.
Got it, okay.
Digital curriculum. Yep.
Okay, yeah,
And it's a
okay.
digital platform.
So do we pay monthly, yearly, annually to these companies? Or do you make a deal with them for 10 years? How's it work?
So the structure is we can ask for quotes for a year, 3 years, and 5 years, and that's currently what we're looking for right now.
It's 5 years.
1 year,
Oh.
3 years, and 5 years. And the reason why, we don't want to commit to something in the long range when we haven't really taken time to dig into the new math standards. That's our work over the next few years to implement new math standards. And so we really want to make sure that this also aligns to the new math standards. Now, this is a 2025 copyright, so I'm fairly confident that it will, but we just don't want to commit to something long range. And we also want to provide learning for all of our teachers in our building and kind of navigate through it together.
So they passed the math standards in '07.
It's been a long time. It's been a
That's
really long.
17 years.
Mhm.
So what, I mean, how does that work? We don't even know, and what, I'm just hoping that we're not just picking this out because it's gonna meet the state's standards that may not be out for another 10 years. Like, I wanna make sure that you guys have what you think you need to get these kids smart.
So when they were looking at this curriculum currently, they really they know their standards and they felt that it aligned. The thing with all curriculum is their national curriculum. And Minnesota has as you know, that Minnesota has standards that are special to Minnesota, and not all curriculum, national curriculum meets Minnesota, so there are some things. I was working with a 6th grade math teacher last Friday, and there are lessons in the 6th grade curriculum that she won't be doing. She has to use 5th grade and some 7th grade, so there's just some restructuring of that just because of how it's set up. So we're working through that.
And this doesn't, remind me, this doesn't include the accelerated math that's being aligned with?
So the framework will still stay the same with acceleration.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the 5 through 8 math curriculum as presented. Any further discussion or questions?
So, what were you just talking about? The advanced or the, what kind of math was it?
Accelerated.
Accelerated. So is that on the same process? Same company, you're gonna switch that too, or?
Same company, because they will follow the same format as what they are doing
They'll just
now.
do it
So
quicker.
acceleration is a grade above. So they'll just use the courses from the next grade.
Gotcha.
That's how it's structured at the middle school.
How many accelerated classrooms are there? One per grade level?
Varies every year.
Oh, it
It
does,
really
okay.
does vary every year.
Okay.
Yep. 1 to 2 maybe?
Okay.
I can answer that.
I think
We
John's
have
here.
2 to 3
Oh.
accelerated math sections. We have, next year's 8th grade will have 2, next year's 7th grade will have 3, next year's 6th grade will have 2. We don't know yet for 5th grade because we're waiting on looking at all the data from 4th grade.
Okay.
Hot dog.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, switch again.
No, we're not
9 through
switching.
12 science.
No.
Oh, you're saying?
Yep, I'm gonna stay. So this presentation is to the approval of curriculum for science in 9-12. This has been 3 years in the making, and I've been working with the high school science department over the last 3 years, and so this is really exciting to bring this to you tonight. So we're asking for the approval of Open SciEd as the adopted curriculum for biology, chemistry, and physics at the high school for grades 9 through 12. Approval for BHS to satisfy Minnesota graduate requirements by completing a combination of Open SciEd courses in earth and space courses through one of these 3 options. 1 year of Open SciEd biology, chemistry, and physics. 1 year of Open SciEd biology, 1 year of chemistry or physics. 1 year of earth and space courses, or 1 year of Open SciEd biology and 1 year of chemistry or physics. 1 semester of an earth science course and or 1 semester of an elective course. Open SciEd is an integrated curriculum. So the science program goals to build capacity to deliver all Minnesota standards by utilizing a common instructional model that fosters a progression of skills. Deliver a tightly aligned 3-dimensional curriculum based on instructional experiences, the real-world multi-level assessment at all grade levels. Our new science standards, which need to be implemented next fall, are 3-dimensional. So they have our disciplinary core idea, which is that's all the science-y stuff, you know, like what is the water cycle? And then we have the cross-cutting concepts by identifying patterns and energy and flow and matter and all of that. And then we have the practices, and that's the instructional piece. What questions do kids need to be able to ask? Can they design and develop a model? So it's kind of 3-dimensional. And the benchmarks in our new Minnesota standards are all 3-dimensional. So utilize a highly rated foundational curriculum that embeds opportunities for differentiation and MTSS support, as well as opportunities to develop Minnesota-specific standards and benchmarks. provide a professional, a cohesive professional development to BHS student, or teachers, so they advance instruction in all grade levels to align the standards and curriculum goals. The high school teachers have actually been working on some professional learning over the last week. It's been phenomenal. So one of the things that we did was last year, one of the high school science teachers wrote a grant, and they got the professional learning. So we have now our own in-house training, so they can provide training to new teachers coming in, and so it's consistent, and it's just really amazing. So, and then maintain the flexibility to deliver and require standards to all students while allowing students in multiple pathways, which is what we talked about in that first slide. Curricular criteria aligned to NGSS and Minnesota standards. Full scope and sequence of the 3 dimensions, coherence in the unit to lesson or module to module coherence. Phenomena-based storyline instruction centered on answering questions about observable phenomenon. So, for example, I taught science for a long time, and I used to teach the water cycle, and they would draw a picture and identify precipitation and condensation. Now we want kids to think about, I wonder if we drink the same water as the dinosaurs. Like, what kid isn't gonna wanna know about that, right? And they will start exploring that. Sequence, learning as defined as developed conceptual understanding and skills. Scientifically accurate. 3D assessments, both formative and summative, and teacher usability, and offers diverse entry points, experiences, and supports for all learners and populations, as well as MTSS support. Open SciEd also is high rigor and meets all of the qualifications on, actually Open SciEd was one of the only curriculums that met all of the requirements of NGSS and the design badge. So that's pretty exciting. Their instructional model starts with that anchoring phenomenon, like I talked about. Kids start asking questions, and then they navigate through those questions and putting together the pieces with the teacher. And then at the end, they look at all of their questions and did they get their questions answered or not. And then if not, they need to go back to the drawing board to see what they need to do to get their answers, their questions answered. So Open SciEd provides a framework for Minnesota. So it's a friend of mine, his name is Dan, and he works for Open SciEd. He has built Minnesota alignment, and so we've been using his model to help make sure that the standards align in each of our classes, and so that is what's been helping us with our work. So based on that framework of K-12 science education and NGSSS, emphasis on the 3 dimensions, the scientific and engineering practices, cross-cutting concepts, and disciplinary core ideas. We would like to start full implementation in the 2024-2025 school year, and our MCAs now change to phenomenon-based MCAs starting next year as well. So we are asking for the proposal of Open SciEd to be adopted for biology, chemistry, and physics at the high school.
Questions for Robin? On the item number 2, those bullets, is this in some way different than what we approved last year? Or is this what we approved last year where we folded the earth science into it?
Correct.
As to satisfy that 3rd credit requirement? Is that how that works?
Yep. So last year you approved number 2, and now we're approving the curriculum.
Now we're saying this is the curriculum vendor and the methodology for delivering the curriculum to align with the standard that we approved last year.
Correct.
Okay.
I sit here and I listen to these presentations, and I'm just reminded how highly trained and highly skilled these teachers are to provide their curriculum to their students and their
They've worked
subject
really
area.
hard.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
It's smart work and just the research to align the courses the way that they did to provide the opportunities for students. I'm having a kid that's going into 10th grade next year. I'm super excited about this, and it was so fun to see all those kids registering and having new opportunities that they didn't have before because of how this is organized. It's excellent. And Open Sci Ed, I've never, maybe I live under a rock, but I've never heard of something like this before, and it's just phenomenal that it's aligned with the NGSS. I'm just thrilled about that. And when they showed it to us at DAC and kind of walked through some of what it looked like, I think the students are going to love it.
Pretty exciting. The science has been working for 3 years, so I'm just so proud of the work that they have accomplished over those last 3 years.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the Brainerd High School 9 through 12 science curriculum as just presented. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And by my count, you get to leave now.
I do.
All right, we will move on to the approval of the resolution for the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, or APAC, vote of non-concurrence response by the district as presented. And I understand the two of you figured out who's talking about what.
Yes, so I'll provide a little bit of context, and then I think Michelle's going to kind of go over the 4 areas for recommendation. And so you might remember the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee every year goes through a metric or a rubric and kind of rates us on different items that we're doing in partnership with that group, and makes recommendations on where we can go, what direction we can take to improve how things are coming along. And so this year, we did that rubric alongside them and handed it off, and they did that rubric as well, came together and made a recommendation, and we get to respond to that now, to their recommendations that they made. And we have 60 days to do that, so we're still within that time frame, and then this goes back to MDE. And the things that they've recommended to us are also things that we would like to work on and continue to work on, and things that have been in progress. Any questions on the context of that before I hand it off to Michelle to talk about the actual recommendations?
No, except to say it was, what, 2 meetings ago, 3 meetings, regular school board meetings ago that they presented. I think one of the takeaways I took away.
Wasn't it?
Sounds about right. One of my takeaways was that certainly there's progress been made. It's not like they keep coming forward with the same requests and we keep not achieving those, right? That this is additional items that are further down the pathway that, you know, if you think of it as alphabetical, we kind of knocked out items A through K, and now we got to work on the rest of the alphabet, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I think that it'd be awfully nice if maybe we got a little credit for what you guys have been doing. I don't know why you have to give us an F every time. We got 1 to 4. Why couldn't we be a 3.5? You know, I think it's ridiculous. It's been going on for how many years, Heidi? How many years did we have this?
I can only speak to the past 6.
Okay, so for 6 years, at the same score every time. Pretty soon, why try?
The interesting thing is when you think about continuous improvement, I don't know that we're ever going to get a concurrent vote.
Right.
And we always strive to that, but I think as we make progress in that rubric, you know, the goal of our advisory committee to also then is to challenge the district of how we can continue to improve. And we have a very active APAC committee. We have a very active Indigenous student population that's highly engaged and continues to grow. So, you know, the one thing I have appreciated over the last couple years is I feel like when they've come to present to you as the board, they've really tried to focus on starting each presentation with the areas of celebrations. And so I think they're trying to honor that growth, but it is also their role to then come back and push against us to say, here's more that you can do. It's been frustrating. I would say in the initial part too, I always felt it was negative. 'Cause I'm the same way. Why do I just have to get a D when I'm working my tail off to get an A. And I think that's where, with this rubric, we're seeing like, okay, well, you get an A in this section, but now this section hasn't been paid attention to. So I think we need to prepare ourselves as a board and as a leadership team that we're always gonna be non-concurrent. I think there's areas that we're concurrent, but it is meant to be for us to continue to grow. And it's a highly engaged group.
It is. And the collaboration is such, you know, they've asked of us, in the past when they've brought us recommendations, they've said, we would love if you would come with recommendations as well. And so we've tried to be proactive in doing that. And some of those have been, you know, we've started down this road, we'd love to continue down this road. And that's been a good collaboration, I think, on some of those recommendations that we have here, that we've been working on together for a while.
And I think participating in the APAC committee meetings, the sense is that that group is very appreciative of the work that we're doing, but they are very loyal to their culture and traditions and want to continue to educate our community to honor the American Indian population. So I'll just go through really briefly the recommendations that they presented to us and then synopsis of our response. So the first recommendation was we need to continue to work on creating a welcoming environment. We have been working on a more inclusive recruitment and retention plan. And we look forward to continuing to collaborate with APAC on this work. In the 23-24 school year, 4 staff were a part of our staff that identify as Native American. 4 staff were hired, yeah, on our staff. And invitations will be extended to the Native veterans. One of the concerns is that we weren't really focusing on having Native veterans participate in our Veterans Day celebrations. So wanting to make sure that we extend invitations to those folks to be a part of our veterans programs. The second recommendation is supporting Indigenous education. I think this is pretty exciting. Are we talking in this about, okay, so Indigenous program staff are encouraged to participate in the district in-service days plan for the 24-25 school year. The Director of Student Support Services will work with the Indigenous program staff to align in-service events with program goals. We want to continue to network with regional colleagues and collaborate with department colleagues in the endeavor to provide cohesive support for staff and students. Number 3, supporting Indigenous students. The Director of Student Support Services will work with the Indigenous Program Coordinator, which we now have one on staff. We had one early in the fall, and then there was a little bit of a break, so that kind of interfered with maybe our momentum, but I feel like we're back on top of that. So work with the Program Coordinator to identify priorities for supporting Indigenous students. Whenever possible, Native staff and staff with knowledge of culturally specific practices that could impact a Native student's academic or social emotional growth and development by the transition will be invited to participate in collegial discussions and planning. And I guess this is the one I was thinking was the other one, but further curriculum development. So Brainerd Public Schools is committed to continual development and refinement of culturally responsive curriculum and instruction. There is for the new Introduction to Indigenous Language and Culture course in development, the Indigenous Program Coordinator will be asked to collaborate with staff developing this course and will continue to do so. as the course is further defined and expanded to include additional sections and content beyond the 24-25 school year. So we are offering let's see, curriculum consultation has been solicited from NDE, regional partners, and representatives from the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. Additionally, we have made arrangements for a language proficiency assessment to be available to any Native educator in ISD 181 interested in speaking Ojibwe with students in our district. So we're currently contracting with the University of Minnesota Ojibwe Language Program for administration and scoring of the language proficiency assessment and curriculum review. So we are offering a language course this fall, and it's just one so far, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So a staff has been hired and, or current staff is going to be leading that course. So, the School Board of ISD 1 adopts as its response to the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee's vote of non-concurrence with the aforementioned recommendations. So we're asking that we approve our response to the 4 recommendations. Yeah. Any questions about that?
And just so you know, in your response, we will have all 6 board members, if approved, all 6 board members will sign the response as well. So this will be reviewed by the directors who are absent. They will also need to review and sign, if approved.
I would make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'd second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Resolution.
Oh, it's a roll call again. Yep, thank you.
Sarah Spear?
Yes.
Kevin Boils?
Yes.
Michelle Brecken?
Yes.
DJ Donley?
Yes.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna lump the next 3 together if you're okay
Sounds
with
good to
that,
me.
Director Boyles. So the next 3, and I know Director Freeman, I think. Is he still tucked behind
He's
the pillar?
lurking back there.
Okay, so I'll have him start moving up in case there's any questions. But items 9, 10, and 11 are all about our annual renew of memberships. The first one is to the Minnesota School Board Association. As you know, we work closely with them regarding all policies. A lot of you as board members are participating in some of their weekly professional development. So that's all encompassed in our membership with the Minnesota School Boards Association. We also then are requesting to renew our membership with the Minnesota Rural Education Association. As we know, in our region, that's a lot of the information control votes are happening more in that central metric area. So Minnesota Rural Education Association does a wonderful job of advocating for districts that are in greater Minnesota. And then the third is the approval and renewal of our 24 resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League. So I'm gonna have Jack kind of give a little bit more detail to that, and then we'll go back and.
Yeah, we bring this annual resolution for membership of the Minnesota State High School League before the board each June. Nothing has changed in terms of the formula. It's the exact same as last year. So our annual membership fee will be a total of $9,099.50. And that represents the true cost of what it costs to operate each sport per school by the State High School League. Based on the financial situation of the league at the end of the year, they then give us a credit back. So essentially, if the league has a good year and revenue's up, we get a larger credit back. League did really well financially this past year, the best it's done in a long, long time. They credit that to new sponsorships that they've worked out, and attendance was up at all the state tournaments, so that was exciting to see. Last year, we received a credit back on our bill for $6,449.50. So right around $3,000 was our fee after the credit. The league anticipates that that'll be even higher this year in talking with one of their directors. And they have advertised that this will be probably the cheapest bill that we'll see in the past 30 years for our MSHSL membership fee. So it's good to see that they're financially stable and doing really well. And they changed this formula after COVID. So again, it kind of plans for the worst case scenario, and then we're credited back based on the revenue of the league. We're in 34 activities with the league. That includes our 31 varsity sports, plus our music programs. Speech would be included in that, and one act play would be included in that. So those are 34. Part of our fee is, it's $160 per activity. So that's a fixed fee that we see each year. And the other portion is based on our MSHSL enrollment. Any questions?
I'm good.
Sounds good, Jack. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, so we'll go back.
I'll make a motion to renew the MSBA.
Yep, sounds good.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Donlinger with a second from Director Spear to approve our renewal with MSBA. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal with MREA.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve our renewal with MREA. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Make a
And next
motion
up-
for the State High School League.
Okay,
I'll second.
so we have a motion from Director Donlinger with a second from Director Spear to renew our membership in the Minnesota State High School League as presented. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kevin Boils,
Yes.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
BJ Donaldson,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Very good, thank you. And next up, we have the approval of the resolution for the identified official with authority.
There's not much to present.
I guess, well, you were listed, but
So,
Dr. Hahn can probably
I
take
can-
it, Carrie.
What we're doing is looking for the approval of the resolution to name Carrie Ross as our individual identified official with authority. So when you think about all of our systems and all the changes, we have to identify that person. Previously, it's been Director Murtha. As we move through transition, our recommendation that it moves to Director Ross.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve Carrie Ross as the identified official with authority. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
BJ Donaldson,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Kevin Boils,
Yes. All right. Next up is Marcy, in the chair for a while.
Yeah.
We're 25 preliminary budget.
Get to warm it up. All right, so when we started the 24-25 budget, we start with a 23-24 revised budget, and we go from there based on our assumptions. So this chart focuses on the general fund. It shows an excess of about $651,000 in the unassigned, which is unrestricted. That's kind of why we focus on that, is because it's unrestricted funds. And then we looked at our general fund revenue assumptions. The big amounts were 2% on the gen ed formula, and then decrease in enrollment of 111. So we ended up with only about 271,000 on that increase. And then compensatory and sorry, that should have been an increase in the levy. We're about 189,000, both of them each. And then special ed, we saw an increase due to ADSIS funding of about 500,000, and there was an increase in interest as well. Now that we're starting to see rates go up, so those are the general fund revenue assumptions. And then we looked at with enrollment, we're looking at that going down to 5,789. That's with 378 coming in for kindergarten. That is low. And it's a average birth rate for the county of the last 4 years. And I just want to point out, in 2012, the birth rate for the county was 748 births, and in 2022 it was 634. So it's down 114. So people aren't having as many kids, is what I'm trying to say. And then, so with this enrollment projection model, you can select which options. So do we want to look at a weighted average, an unweighted average, 2 years, 5 years? We did select the 2-year weighted average because the most recent 2 years, we're seeing that decline in enrollment. If we went 5 years out, that would be a little bit more deceiving, right? Because we did have higher enrollment pre-COVID. So we went with the 2-year weighted average.
We also looked at that, we also had the COVID bubble in there, because when you look at would be our current second graders, they're in that bubble where we had about 64 parents decide they were gonna wait a year to put their child in kindergarten, so we saw that kindergarten bubble come through. So if we would've put that in, we would have had a high point in that average as well, so just being cognizant of that.
And this is, I should have said, this is a very, brief presentation. The more detailed document is in your board agenda. And then the expense assumptions, this is known and projected increases in salary and benefits and services. And then we did have a 12.7 FTE reduction in there. 8.75 of that is people who are coded to CARES. As you guys know, the CARES funding's going away, and 8.75 FTE of those positions are also going away with that funding. And then there was an increase in the PSEO contract. You'll see we're a little bit over budget for 23-24, plus in tonight's consent agenda, there was an increase in the credit price, so we had to increase that budget as well. And then there's known replacement savings. So to date, anybody who was retiring, resigning are in there, but after this week, if more resignations, retirements come through, that would go into the budget revision. Again, this is the general fund with the assumptions that I just described. So now the unassigned deficit is 2.99 million. Yeah, and I just wanted to point out the other funds are restricted, and another large deficit is in LTFM. And that's due to the carryover of 23-24 projects that plan to be done for 24-25, and that'll also be presented at the next long range and finance committees, the LTFM plan. So you guys can see more detail on those. The unassigned fund balance is currently at 10%. The projected with this deficit that we just talked about is going to be at 10.4%, so we'll just be barely above it. If the deficit's carried forward into 25-26, the fund balance will go below policy, which leads into discussions on a referendum, and that's at the upcoming board retreat. You guys will get a presentation on that. So things to consider, as I said, the CARES funds expire September 30th. So we're gonna do what we can through that date. Any staff that are still staying on, we're gonna continue to code them, and then we'll make that flip over in October. They'll go to their regular code. And then we'll try to run reports and make sure that we're spending as much as we can of those funds. Another thing to note is the Paul Bunyan Education Co-op, we actually will receive student support personnel aid on their behalf, and that will be added in the budget revision as well. I didn't have a number for that, so that was not in here. And then the Brainerd Online School, the budget was carried forward for 23-24, and that will have to be reviewed when we do the revision because the stipends are based on enrollment. In all the other funds, all funds were adjusted for interest. That was something that just went across the board. Fund 2, we carried forward the revenues and expenses just because we don't know rates until July generally. I did remove the supply chain funding. It's been the last couple of years we've gotten that, but with the CARES funding going away, I don't know if they will give that to us again. So that was removed. And then the community service fund was updated based on information I received from the community service director. And then Fund 6 was updated with projects to use up some of the remaining funds, just ones that we have identified and reviewed at the long range committee meetings. Debt service is based on our levy and debt payments. And then Fund 45, which is our trust fund, was updated with the implicit subsidy draw. Like I said, that was very quick and
I'd like to discuss a couple of the, kind of just the overview as we've been working through this about the past 6 months. One thing is, you saw, and previously we were projecting about 2.7 is where we were figuring with the goal of hitting about 2.5 is where we felt comfortable at. Knowing the CARES, we've been calling it the CARES cliff fall, but we also were very strategic and we built up that fund balance by supplanting a lot of what we could with CARES funding, so we knew this was coming. That $200,000 increase, two things. One, PSEO went up $100,000. So that had to be added into the budget. The others, we had a technology of about 80,000. So that's why you're seeing a flip from around that 2.7 to 2.9. So again, when you start to process levy, if we do capital levy, that can be transportation and technology focus areas. So when you start to see that increase on the technology side, there are a lot of service industries as we move into next year. Our surrounding districts are seeing significant expense increases in transportation and significant expense increase on the technology side when you look at services and parts. Ryan's doing a nice job. He's negotiated a good contract with a lot of our devices, but it's just going to be something we need to be mindful of. We know in the meetings we've had in finance, you know, we're going to be dipping into that fund balance, but it was a one-time dip, which is what we had prepared for. So again, we budget extremely conservative. As we go through, a lot of times prior to COVID, we would start at about a 1.8 million deficit, and by the time we'd finished up, we'd see it go back. That's how conservative we go. This one's above that, so it's going to be something that has to be closely watched, but not necessarily, this wasn't unexpected. So we started at 4.5, and so through reductions and attrition of staff, we're down to that 2.9. There's some things that can happen on the facility side with that alt facilities funding that we now qualify for, so that'll be a lot of the what can we move and how can we adjust to continue to help our unassigned.
Can you explain the PSEO increase to me? Like what is that?
More students seeking
So
PSEO.
that's
and
basically,
then-
it's an outlay for students that enroll in PSEO?
And there's an increase in the per credit rate. So when
Okay.
you combine those two factors, you're gonna see the overall increase. We have a high participation rate when, and not surprisingly, when they walk down the steps and go right on campus, so.
At least tonight, half of this board has been on the board for 3 years or more. So the building of the existing fund reserve and balance was deliberate, specifically for now, right?
Preparing for this
It
moment,
was built up with the hope that we could hang on to some of it, but with the sure knowledge that we weren't gonna be able to hold on to all of it, because this was gonna happen when the funding went away, and that we were gonna have to come back and claw it back. So at minimum, we were able to at least earn a little bit of extra interest on that money while it sat in there. And, but I think more for the public's benefit than anybody at this table, need to understand that just because we voted, or we're about to vote to dip into that fund balance, that is something that we calculated a long time ago that we were going to have to do.
And potentially, right, because so much changes. So as you approach that budget revision, you're gonna have a more solid understanding of where that's gonna be. The challenge that's still with our leadership team is gonna be, as things ebb and flow, if a person resigns, if there's a hire, you know, we are constantly looking for how do we attack that identified deficit. But again, not diminishing, we always want best in front of our students, and so keeping that student focus. You know, things to celebrate when you look at enrollment challenges, you know, for the first time in a long time, our high school enrollment is stable and going up. 522 graduates is one of the larger graduating classes in the last few years. That expansion of online learning, now you can get your high school diploma completely online. They've expanded the electives, so we have actually private schools that are now looking to say, hey, we might want some of our students to take that online elective or that online course because we can't do it here. That's never happened in the history. So, and we're starting to see other students from not even within our area seeking that. We know the expansion going into 24, 25 is the exploration of 7th and 8th online. With the intention by 25, 26, you're gonna have core courses online for 7th and 8th graders. So how do we create that stability? How do we create that options? Because we all know funding is based on that ADM with the students, so. All the things to consider as you approach.
These numbers that you gave us on attendance or on enrollment, those aren't ADMs, though. Those are actual people, right?
Those are ADMs.
Those are ADMs.
So we're paid on ADMs.
I knew that. Well, I thought we were looking at numbers just a month ago, and we were over 6,000.
That's students, so student count. And then when it converts to ADMs,
Well, I thought they were the 1 or 1.2. So
No, we have, when you get into the littles, they're only 0.3.
Oh, the EC.
Right, so you get this,
And if I'm a student who's been here half a year, I count as a 0.5. So that's why it doesn't, yeah.
Why was there such an increase in third grade?
that's the
Kindergarten
COVID,
class.
that's the COVID bubble.
Oh.
So that's our second grade now moving to third grade. So when you look at those parents who, again, in the unknown are in person, we had about 64 families decide, hey, I'm gonna hold my child for one more year. That's why we saw the bubble come back in. But that wasn't a predictable class.
Okay.
So unlike Marcy reports birth rate, and you also talk about who's moving here, that's impacting your early enrollment.
The good news is that it shouldn't, last year we were shooting for 1.8 or 1.9. And would it come down to 650?
We started with 650, but in previous years it was about 1.8, and then we, yeah.
And technically, when you're in that 1% to 2%, when you're looking at $100+ million budget, we kind of figure if you're within 1% to 2%, that's a balanced budget. If you think about our check registers, again, 30,000 foot view of a budget, so we don't get too anxious about that. Marcy, I think, could have calm without hives. If we were at about 2.5, she's still even uncomfortable with that. But it's a little bit higher than anticipated. So again, as we navigate some of those changes, we have to just be very mindful of how we're gonna get there. And staff are, you'll get $270,000 of an increase from the state, and when you look at overall salary increases and benefit increases, it's about 3.5 million. We're a people business. People cost us the most. They're 80+% of our budget, so. If I win the lottery. We say that every year, right? We win the lottery. And to put it in perspective, and I've shared this with all the board members, we've talked a lot about it in finance, but again, a district our size, and if you look at where a lot of districts our size are at with their budget deficit, and you've heard this because you've read it all throughout the state, districts our size are facing budget deficits 3-4 times bigger than where we're at. This was a very mindful budget of supplant, build the fund balance.
And it's also important to note that many of those school districts have an operating levy, which we do not.
Correct. The difference of being a large district in rural Minnesota.
Anything else out of finance, Director Donnelly, that you think is relevant?
Oh, I don't like this deal. Obviously, I don't think anyone does. But I guess we have to approve it and get moving on. And we're gonna have, it's gonna be a little bit of a wild year next year. Because we can't keep doing this. You know, we say that our policy is 10% of what our big fund is, right? Well, the state's is 30. So I don't know why they need you to have 3 months where, 30% of your budget being reserves. I don't know what they're worried about, what could happen, but it seems like we listen to everything else the state says. We're gonna do the state math, we're gonna do the state science, we're gonna do the state reading. I mean, they're experts, I guess, I don't know. So, pretty soon there won't be any need for school boards. Because we'll just do what the state says, they'll just be state-run schools. It's going great, that's what they're doing. And we seem to just get in line, so then I think we should get in line on having 30% in reserves. So we are gonna have to make some major changes. It's gonna be a tough deal. So, but I mean, there's no changing it today. And I know that Heidi and Marcy worked hard on this. And like I said, the good news is we're saying 2.9, I'd like to think it might come in close to $1 million, $1.25 million. It's kind of what happened last year. And so last year, think how much money we saved on snow removal and things like that, And I know we got a good busing deal going. And so we need to approve this and get on down the road. Get creative.
And historically, prior to COVID, Brainerd operated around an 8%, which still makes Marcy's skin crawl. So this is, and through the work of this board, actually where our fund balance is it's the highest it's been. Again, that was some of the creativity that could come with COVID. So even though the recommendation is you should have 3 months of operating, we've always, I'm gonna go back to 07, 08, when you look at trend data for where we've operated from, it's been around that 8%-ish fund balance, so.
But to
This-
DJ's point, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no gymnastics left to do or creative
Exactly.
accounting left to do next year.
Exactly.
There's no,
82%
the
of
work on
our
that
budget
starts
is,
July 1, right?
Yeah.
No, good work on this, Marcy. I know, I mean, you spend
A lot of time.
a measurable portion of your life in that spreadsheet.
Yeah, it was previously the policy 5 to 7, and to answer your question, it was before my time, but at one point, the state was holding back payments because they were having budget crisis too, right?
so that's why they want you to have it stacked up.
Correct.
Because then if they stop paying us, at least we have 3 months worth to be able to continue our operations.
Or if you have a government shutdown.
Right.
Otherwise, then you're
Good point,
taking out
yeah.
loans and paying the interest on the loan.
But not that our friends in St. Paul would ever do any political shenanigans such as that.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Spear to approve the 24-25 preliminary budget as presented. Any further discussion? In addition to Marcy, DJ, you and John, John, if you're watching, thanks for all the hard work you guys are doing on the Finance Committee. It's really important. It helps the rest of us really assimilate a lot of this that would be very difficult. And you too, Marcy, thanks for spending all that extra time with us. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to the fiscal year 25 liability work compensation insurance renewal.
So I'm gonna ask Jake Hoosier to come up. I think you all have met him.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hi,
And we're
everyone.
gonna-
How are you?
We're gonna tag.
Jake, we're timing this, so we don't be thinking that you're gonna be up here too
I
long.
can talk faster than you if I have to, so.
I've never met anybody that got so excited about insurance in their life other than Jake Hoosier.
You gotta be excited about something, brother.
I know.
So I just want to preface this with, I had been hearing through my association that insurance was going to increase 10 to 20%, like not good, right? But Jake has done his magic work and been awesome, and we actually didn't even have to increase the liability side of the insurance budget. Our work comp is going up. You guys will see that in there. Our mod is going from 1.51 to 1.65, so that's not unexpected to see that go up. But
And payrolls too, or.
payrolls
Or
are
higher.
going up too, which affects that as well. But I'll let him tell you all that he did.
Just real quick on the work comp, next year we'll have a different conversation because that mod will drop. So we'll be talking about how much it dropped. I don't know how much it's gonna be, but it'll drop. Yeah, knock on wood. But there's the 2019, 2021 claims years were really bad on the work comp, and a lot of that, with the construction. Just some fluke things that happen, but a lot of that stuff will drop off, which will make that mod lower for next year. So we'll look forward to that. On the property liability side, I've been doing this for a little over 18 years. I've never seen a property market like this ever. So to Marcy's point, we were expecting maybe 10 to 15, maybe higher than 15% increase. So we got to jump on this in February. Reed was awesome on entertaining the various risk control folks from the insurance companies that we submitted this to, and that paid off huge. So we are going to go away from Hanover on the property side and go to an insurance company called Chubb. They do a lot of large property lines, and so it's going to hold really, really consistent to what it was last year, about a 2% increase, which is quite low compared to what the average has been. So thankful that they participated and gave us something really competitive. Hanover will stay on the other lines. They've had a long-term partnership with the district, and one that they'd like to continue. Just reinsurance on their property side was making their property renewal not competitive at all. So what could have been a $125,000 increase is not anywhere near that. So.
And just to highlight a couple of the changes, the property deductible went from 25 to 100, and then the cyber policy, actually went down in cost, but we did increase it by $1 million. So everything else was pretty status quo. And when he talks about Reed, these insurance companies, they want to come in and do a walkthrough before they just, they want to see our buildings. not all of them, they see a handful of them, but
Yep. And there's a lot of question that goes with it, and,
Yes.
you know, different fire doors and protection and sprinkler rates and things, so he was extremely helpful, and I know he's got a full plate as it is, and he was able to squeeze that in, so it made a big difference.
and Jake knows the applications are like one of my least favorite things to do.
We try to pre-fill as much as we can. So,
Well, I make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Spear to approve the liability and work compensation insurance renewal as presented. Discussion, comments? Once again, you look at what's happening outside these four walls in these spaces, it's exploding. My own business, I can attest to what's happening to me right now. So whatever you did, great work.
thank you. Thank you
And so
very
we'll be
much.
talking after the meeting.
Outstanding.
No,
Thank you all
seriously,
very
that's,
much.
I mean, to see a 2% increase in premiums would be a normal year, not a year where, you know, in the P&C space, it's incredibly crazy right now.
Yeah. So there's a lot that just won't even touch new business at all, and I've never seen that before.
Or they're
so.
pulling out of markets.
Right, yep.
Yep, so thank you.
Yeah, no,
To
thank
both of you for all the hard work. Any other commentary or questions? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jake?
Thanks.
All right, Marcy, still in the hot seat for the approval of the contract for the fiscal year 24 audit services with our friends at Clifton Larson Allen LLP.
So this is for the 23-24 audit. It would be generally in the October timeframe. It's about an 8% increase, which is what we saw last year, and no other changes noted. It's our audit plus single audit for $4,500. And if there's additional single audits, it's an additional $4,500. However, with CARES going away, I don't anticipate that happening. So that bucket keeps getting smaller and smaller.
So they've been raising us 8% a year,
Yeah, so what we
2 years in a row?
Yes.
So do you snoop around, see if anybody else has got qualified to do this work?
I believe it was 3 years ago I did an RFP, and it's probably about due for this next.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you can just charge 8% more every year. Sounds great, but it's not realistic. It certainly isn't realistic for us. It's not sustainable. So we're gonna have to get after them. Get them. Sick of Mars.
How long have we had Clifton Larson Allen?
Since I've been here, and
Okay.
I believe, I mean, prior to that, I think it's been a long time.
It's been a long time, it's a long-standing relationship.
When you did the last RFP, Marcy, was the competition close?
Yes, in fact, we had somebody come in lower, and then a CLA matched it. And we stayed with them because we were mid-construction, and to have new auditors come in and learn all that, it would have been challenging.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yep. So they matched it, and we went with them.
Did you say RFPs are every 3 years?
It's whenever we decide.
Oh, when we decide, okay.
So we're probably due.
Yeah, I would support this motion with the knowledge that you'll do an RFP
Yeah.
before the next time we do this.
It is doable.
Okay, yeah, like that.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the contract for fiscal year 24 audit services with Clifton Larson Allen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next up, we have the resolution for establishing the dates for filing affidavits of candidacy for.
And I think I
School
drew the
board.
short straw on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Perfect.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Well,
So we have a motion from
we could
Director
do-
Dondelinger with a second from Director Spear to approve the resolution establishing the dates for filing affidavits of candidacy as presented. For those watching at home, those dates are July 30th through August 13th, I believe. Did I read that correctly? You did. For filing. And you got to have your $2 in your fist when
And
you
your
come in.
ID. Don't forget your ID.
Yep, so any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
TJ Dudlinger?
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Kevin Boils,
Yes.
Michelle Brecken.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Marcy. And next up, we have final approval of the portrait of a graduate.
Yeah, so this is building off of what was presented in May. There was lots of discussion. The board felt comfortable with all facets minus the definition of dependable. There was lots of discussion about showing up at work on time. So putting back to the group, dependable was redefined as consistently reliable and trustworthy, demonstrating integrity, honesty, and respect while taking responsibility for their actions, words, and intentions. So this was sent to you right after the feedback came back. I didn't receive any concerns or further clarification requested. So before you, we hope, is what will be the final approval of our portrait of a graduate. So it can continue to move forward in the work as we approach the 24-25 school year.
I had brief discussions with both missing directors, and as far as I know, there were no concerns from either one of them on it, just for the record. For my part, I liked it a lot before, now I love it. I think it is an improvement over what was there. There's a little more clarity. And
Definitely.
So I will make a motion for the final approval of the portrait of a graduate.
Seconded.
all right, so we have a motion from Director Brecken with a second from Director Dondelinger to approve the portrait of a graduate as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Approval of the Behavior Management Specialist Handbook for the 24 to 26 as presented. This sounds like a fun one.
Yes, we have two handbooks to bring forward to you today. What we did this year for the handbooks, as you can remember, 2022 is when we really established handbooks for many of the groups in similar situated positions to make it more explanatory, I guess, as far as compensation benefits for the group, also to allow them some more input into what they'd like to see with the compensation increase. So what we did this year, we sent each of the at-will groups a survey, just kind of seeing what their satisfaction are with salary, benefits, time off, a few other things, and then gave some open answered questions so they could add some additional suggestions, what was confusing about the handbook, what they'd like to see different. And then we invited them in to meet with us. So we were happy to have a behavior management specialist join us last week, and that is the first handbook to review. So we were able to do an increase in the salary scale. We'd also added some longevity payments to be similar as educational assistants. So as they hit the top of that salary schedule, they still do have the opportunity to get increases based on number of years working with the district. Match the 403B match to that of the educational assistants, and just did some updates to both district contribution to insurance language, and then remove the student support specialist from the handbook because that was a CARES funded position that was unfortunately eliminated moving into this next year.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Brecken to approve the Behavior Management Specialist Handbook as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next one
So
is
similar.
the Coordinators and Department Heads Handbook.
Yes, so another group we met with at the same day, had a good group of people join us and had good conversation, again, doing salary adjustments for both 24-25, 25-26, and updated the district contribution based on the previous handbook language, so just putting it for the new 2-year range, and then just some cleanup language in ESST addition. So not a whole lot of change to that one, just kind of an update on the salary matrix.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve the Coordinators and Department Heads Handbook for 24 through 26 as presented. Any further discussion? Are we all caught up on all the ESST stuff, or is there still more of that?
ESST, we are up to date on that. They all had kind of agreements, because once that came enacted, we had to do our notification on that and how it was gonna work. We did all that right away. We do have, I think, 3 more handbooks and 3 more union agreements that'll be expiring June 30th. So we're meeting with, we met with 2 today, and then we're meeting with 1 tomorrow for handbooks. Those should be ready for the July board meeting. And then we meet with principals tomorrow, interpreters tomorrow, I believe. It's a
Tomorrow
very
afternoon, yes.
busy month. And then clerical towards the end of the month. So hopefully we'll get those all in July is the goal.
So if I remember, it might be slightly different for school districts, but I think it's the same as private enterprise in the sense that the handbooks, I mean, we're just updating them to be consistent. The law was to get notices in people's hands, right?
And we did that.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So now all the language is just in the handbook so they can refer to it.
I'm in this, doing the same thing myself right now. Still haven't updated the handbook.
Super duper.
Maybe I'll do it tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, so we have the motion from Director Spear. We have a second from Director Brecken. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now you can.
Just in case you have a question.
Yep. And the last item up for bid on the Price is Right tonight would be item number 20 in action items.
Wow.
Would be approval of the interim superintendent contract with the 24-25 school year with Mr. Peter Grant, who's joined us this evening. Hello again. I have a great picture of him signing his contract if anybody wants it. I took it the other day.
Yes, so we met with Peter last week, and myself and Kevin, the board chair, I apologize, met and kind of talked through interim superintendent agreement and kind of agreed upon the terms, and so we're bringing that forward for you for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Donlinger to approve the interim superintendent contract with Mr. Peter Grant. Any further discussion? Questions? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You're hooked now, Mr. Grant.
Thank you.
As soon as DJ puts his ink on that, it's irrevocable. All right, we'll move on to committee meeting updates. We'll start with the curriculum committee update from Director Spear. Feels like we covered a lot of that.
I think everything we covered was on the agenda tonight. The ACOMP, the curriculum, and the portrait of a graduate, and some conversation about training for the READ Act. Yeah, we're good.
Sounds good. How about facilities and long-range planning, Director Dondlinger?
Oh, what the heck. They did the time capsule. We got some things going on. Have you heard about this Raptor system they've got going on? We got it in all the buildings now, and it runs a quick background check on you if you're coming in these buildings, which I think is pretty good idea. So that thing's going. They're just about done with the Blueprint 181. It's almost complete. And then they came in with a plan to make a Baxter School Forest, which is pretty neat. In fact, they have one at Forest View. And then we have the room, and they have trails back there. And I think Mike's Tree Service, maybe it's Landworks. I don't know, I shouldn't say because I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
Who's Landworks?
Who's Landworks, yeah?
Landworks? They're like donating to go clear out these trails for these kids, and so teachers have a place where they want to take the kids out in the woods and let them mess around, which I thought was pretty neat. And then we talked about the high school farm.
Yeah, it's all with the state forestry and everything. I went over there in mid-May and walked all the trails. They just cut them out. They hadn't cleaned them up all the way yet.
Yeah, I'd
but
make it a
it's-
DNR forest or something. It doesn't
Yeah.
really cost us anything. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're gonna be able to buy just the 40 at the school farm, not the whole 80, which will save us half the dough, which I think's in today's world, like we've been talking about all night. Waiting to save every dollar we can. So that's basically that deal. The finance thing, you just heard it all. Jake was at our meeting. We got some stuff to figure out, you know. We sold our house. I think we approved that at the last meeting. So you guys kind of are up to date on everything that went on in finance.
Well, you effectively knocked out 2 committee updates. You batted for yourself and for Director Ward all in one fell swoop.
Well, I
Well
figured
done.
that's what's gonna happen.
Well, I think you guys were here like 8 hours that day.
Yeah.
We were here for 6.
Oh, yeah.
We were here from 8 to 2.
Okay.
And then back again.
Then back
that
again.
night.
I need my own business cards. I'm gonna be around here all the time. Here
We'll
tomorrow.
compare time cards.
Back tomorrow.
Next up is informational. So let's start with Brainerd Public Schools Foundation, Director Spear.
So BPSF had their annual retreat was it last week? It's been a week already. And celebrated and kind of reviewed events and activities from this year. Celebrated Jessica Hapajoki going off the board. She's been on it for 9 years, which is pretty amazing. and also Heidi stepping off as well in the capacity that she's in, and begin planning for next year. And just a quick update on the scholarship recognition night, we had more than 150 students receive one or more scholarships. I think it was a total of more than 280,000. Am I getting that right? Does that sound right?
The foundation was like 180, and then we approached almost $1 million in total scholarships awarded. It was pretty
Wow.
significant.
So lots of generosity and amazing students celebrated that night, so. That's it.
Great. Next up, Equity Task Force, Director Brickman.
So we had our last meeting for the school year on May 14th. We've been really focusing on community partnerships. Prior to that meeting, we had heard from some high school student-led focus groups to see how they feel about safety in the schools and their sense of belonging. Then in May, I know I did 2 focus groups in the middle school, and I think there was another person from the task force who did another focus group. So we'll look at that data in the fall just to see what kinds of improvements we can make or recommendations we can make to increase student safety and their sense of belonging. And then we're going to be looking at the interrupter posters that will be presented to the staff in different learning spaces in the fall. Oh, yeah.
You can share those interrupter stickers.
Yeah, interrupter stickers. So there's going to be some training for staff on how to use those posters. So basically, the intent is if you see somebody being disrespectful, unkind, bullied, you're encouraged to step up and either, do stop, ask, tell, or echo. So ask them to stop, ask them what they mean, tell somebody that this is happening, or, what's the echo part again?
Echo part is if I hear like someone say, hey, that's not appropriate to say, a way that I can interrupt or show support is stepping in and saying, hey, I agree, that's inappropriate, you need to stop that.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest requests we had is staff and students asking for very specific ways to respond. And that's the intent of the interrupter training is one, just to really interrupt and stop whatever's occurring, but giving safe approaches to do that. So a very concerted effort to focus on bullying, but it'll be across every building. So you heard, I think, at the April board meeting about the posters and
So this is the same deal where we had the posters before? That Randy was upset about?
Well, I mean, they haven't been deployed yet.
Why are we doing this? Isn't this a task force? What is this for?
It's part of an anti-bullying campaign. So when we had students, we've done the student survey and then a lot of the work with the equity task force. One of the things we heard from both students and staff is when something's occurring, people want to intervene, but they didn't know how to intervene or what they should do. And so we actually started 2 years ago with Zima Pontini was her name. She came in and really talked about school districts and be it a facility, community is much more successful at creating a more welcoming culture and really tampering bullying down or responding to bullying when you have a concerted, consistent response to it. So everybody has the same opportunity, and so it becomes part of the culture of how we're gonna do. So when you step into one of our facilities, you're gonna see, how can I respond? And it's simple things to do, and it gets at your comfort level. I may
The
not,
equity task force isn't a real committee, right?
no, but
It's
a lot
a
of.
real thing. I understand
Yeah.
people actually go to meetings and work hard on this. I'm not saying that, but it's not like one of our core committees. So
we-
if we're gonna start putting their stuff up, then what's gonna stop
This is actually done.
whichever other group wants to put posters up in our schools? And I just think it's a slippery slope.
And this isn't coming from the equity task force.
What's it
They were
coming from?
charged with the work of really listening to students and how to respond. Then it came back to the district as a district to say, and with our district leadership team, how are we gonna respond? Our staff are asking, what's the appropriate way, or what is language that they should use as a staff member when this is happening? So if I'm at Riverside, I can step in the Riverside building, use the same language compared to when I go to Harrison, the middle school, the high school. And so it's very specific training. You've heard over and over as a board about bullying, about behavior in building, about response to the kid who's being difficult. This is now the consistent response that's gonna occur. And so the task force work was really listening to student voices. the district leadership team was, how are you gonna respond to that? And what are you gonna do to train staff and also set that expectation for students? And so the interrupter training is what we went for, and it's actually a partnership that we're working with Crow Wing County. It's been sponsored by the Child Protection Team. We're really looking at, right now, we've really focused on K-12, but some of this too, how do we use 3, 4, and 5-year-olds? And it's some simple things. If something's making you uncomfortable, for example, I'm at the grocery store and somebody's chewing the clerk out ahead of me, I might feel comfortable just leaning forward and saying, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. And so then, at least I've interrupted it, but we're training staff to be able to say, hey, you might echo that. That's gonna show support for the next person. You might feel comfortable enough saying, what do you mean by that? So
I'm not
that's the
saying it's
question.
bad stuff, I just don't understand why we're putting posters
No,
up.
think of it this way, that,
Why, I mean, you're training the staff to do these things, it's just, it's wonderful.
right, so
What's
it's
the
a
poster gonna
site leader administrative decision on how to deploy something like this, and they just came to the Equity Task Force to use them as a resource because we were doing surveys on student safety and understanding what the real concerns were, so that was useful information. So then we just used it as a conduit. There's 3 board members on that task force. Michelle, myself, and John are on there. And so we went to the visual arts students at Brainerd High School and asked them to design prototypes for these posters. And then we took them to the administrative staff and said, do you want to use these in your buildings? So it's really an administrative decision, not a task force decision. The task force is just a tool.
And it's that visual. When we're looking at to make this embedded in our culture, it's the quick visual I can refer to. It's the quick sticker. Kids love stickers, staff love stickers. But it is gonna be some of the consistent work that's gonna have to go moving forward. Right now, if you say, how do you respond to bullying in your building? We have a form that people can fill out, principals respond, but it's kind of coming from an administrative side. We want it to come from a student, from anybody who walks in our building, and from our staff to create that safe place, that welcoming space. So we have the expectation that if you're acting disrespectfully, if you're saying something disrespectful, if you're targeting somebody, you should be expected that somebody's gonna stop you. Somebody might ask a question, somebody's gonna report you, and they're gonna show support for the person that's interrupted. That's what this is all about. The poster's just a visual cue of those quick 4 words, and it was designed by students. They did a bright primary color for the elementaries, and they did blue and gray for the secondaries and the warrior colors. So,
And actually, staff was asking too, if I am observing some sort of bullying in my classroom, what is it that I can do or say? So, I mean, it's helping students take that initiative, but it's also giving staff some tools to intervene.
Are we empowering the staff so they can actually step in and handle things?
but it's interesting that the research on bullying will tell you it's more powerful when it's intervened by a peer compared to the adult. And so that's when we did the research to really look at how are we responding to student behavior. So one of the strategic plan goals, number 4, is student and staff well-being, where they can feel safe and thrive. This is a big part of, you know, and when the kid lips off to a staff member, like our staff have said that, it's giving the tools to the staff member for the next staff to say, hey, that's not okay. That's not okay. I'm not gonna accept that. You don't do that to that staff member. There's gonna be consistent language that's used to address. So the posters are a visual, stickers are a visual, but the training pieces that are going to that, and it gives staff the comfortability of being able to refer to that. I mean, if I'm in an elementary, and I just say, hey, no, we don't accept that. You're gonna stop that right now. Look at right here. That's the intent. So, but the Equity Task Force was great with really lifting up and having the group go back to student focus groups. Like Michelle was part of a student focus group of really listening to the student voice of how to respond. So, I'm really, it's been 2 years in the making. Kind of excited to see it come into action finally, at the request of students and staff.
Anything else from Equity Task Force? Okay, thanks, Michelle. Next up, Business Services Report. She's back.
Nothing too exciting to note. Community service, building construction, and OPEB are varying due to timing of payments. So that's all I have. Any questions? Okay,
I don't think so.
thank you.
Okay, Superintendent's
front row?
report.
I am. I'm doing my traditional, give you the update. Plus, I just have to say, this is the longest agenda in my 6 years, 10 years assistant soup and soup, and this is probably the fastest that we have ever gotten through that many action items, so,
Now, I don't know,
I'm just,
I'm gonna throw a hypothesis out there.
I know where you're going.
So anyway, superintendent's report.
Superintendent, you did it so fast because you're so excited about this. So again, through our strategic plan, just a reminder that our ultimate goal in Brainerd Public Schools is to educate and inspire each student by providing innovative opportunities to create lifelong success. When we say that, we ground ourselves in realizing that we're teaching children, not subjects. We're leading people, not projects. And we're going to work alongside those that we serve with a commitment to educate and inspire each student by providing innovative opportunities to create lifelong success. A reminder of our goals: increase academic achievement, ensure safe facilities through standardized procedures, practices, and equitable resources. Goal 3, strengthen the financial position of Brainerd Public Schools. And goal number 4 is to establish and grow a working environment where students and staff feel supported and are encouraged to thrive. Just like our last conversation about bowling. But progress on update, increased student achievement. As Director Ross explained, we have a comprehensive literacy and plan with a calendar that's been approved. Talked about how our administrators are going to stay at least 3 modules ahead of our staff, so they're always feeling comfortable in that work to be able to really support the staff as they work through this. It is a graduate level course. It'll be intensive. They have tests they have to pass and portfolio they have to put together, so there's going to be a lot of work ahead. You heard about our math curriculum process and where we're heading into 25, 26. And as we've gone through, one of the big areas was those career pathways, and we're so excited with the work that's happened. And our portrait of graduate ties to that. Our career pathways fully launch in the, oh, look at that, 25. We're gonna be stuck in a year. It's the 25, 26, 24, 25 school year. Safe facilities, Director Donlinger, he talked about that as we've talked. The Raptor system is fully operational in each building. We'll have the capacity to continue to build on those. Right now it's running more of a criminal check, but as we have some of the custody issues and those things, we can build in those systems to create those flags when we look for the visiting passes coming into our buildings. Super exciting, we worked with Rick from the Bloomington Public Schools, and he really did an audit of our crisis response. And so we have training for all of our administrators next week on our crisis response plan. We're moving away from Alice. It's a very difficult process to go through. And we're going to a much more consistent, easy to approach no matter what the response is. So that training happens for administrators and all staff in August. We'll pick up on that. The financial position, which you've heard lots about when we made a strategic goal about that. The levy research continues. We've qualified for that alternative facilities funding, which is exciting. And then Director Donlinger also noted the property sale and acquisition resulting in cost savings. Environment where students and staff thrive. We've put out our school survey. We've had almost 600 responses. This is what I think you as a school board need to note, and you're going to hear more about it as the data continues to come in. But in our current measure of almost 600 families, 85% of our families are agreeing that Brainerd Public Schools is a safe place for their children. 88% of the families are saying that they feel that it's a welcoming place. Our schools are welcoming. Now, do I want to see those percentages higher? Do our leadership teams want to see those higher? Absolutely, we do. But we're making progress, and I think our data is starting to reflect that. When we talk about educate and inspire, 522 graduates. That's pretty exciting. Today, extended school year and credit recovery began at BHS, at the Braining Learning Center, at Forest View Middle School, at Lincoln Education Center, at Riverside, Nisswa, and Baxter. We have kids coming back in. Learning's never stopping. Super exciting when you talk about our goal of literacy and increasing literacy achievement. We have over 500 students this summer participating in our Battle of the Books. In 3rd to 5th grade, 200 participants, and you need to see a picture of this. That's what I'm putting in here. This is what 200 3rd through 5th graders look like when they're coming into our schools to do Battle of Books in the summer. And if you haven't been able to be a part of that, and thanks to Lori Wig and her leadership, and our Brainerd Public Schools Foundation, and our friends at the library, this opportunity continues where they're getting books in hands for free, they're getting to hear from the authors, they're getting to talk to the authors, and this program continues to grow. So again, talk about inspiring students and educating students. What do we get excited about? I'm gonna put it through pictures rather than words. 4th grade graduation. Many of you got to attend those. If you look at, there's the families, look at the students. And I don't know anybody who gets more excited about student success. Principal Bjorg is a wonderful example of that. Those of you who were in attendance, it was super wonderful to hear from Craig Rezak retiring. And when you see his signed gown, which is a new tradition the Brainerd High School students have started, but his speech about finding joy and realizing how connected we are, and then always say yes to valet. But his message was really powerful and inspiring to those of us that got to be in there. The faces of our graduates, when they're receiving those diplomas and realizing the hard work that they've put in place. One of my favorite students, this is Matthew. If you ever meet Mr. Matthew, he's very respectful every time he greets you and saying his success. I knew Matthew when he was an elementary student. And then just, you heard at the beginning, our state championship success. There's Miss Clow standing at the top of the podium after winning her high jump state title. And then you get to indulge me, because I'm gonna hit escape from this hopefully so I can click both pictures. Carla gave me this picture because she hasn't been able to publish it anywhere, so you're gonna get to see it live here at the board meeting. I've had a lot of fun doing this job, and I think if you wanna do a job well, you need to have a lot of fun. And so that's a good reflection of just one opportunity of having fun. But the other thing, I think if you wanna be great in your position, you have to love the reason you do it. And so the best part about this job and my job has been loving our kids. And I'm not a crier, so sorry about that. I'll never forget this day. This is a cute little 3-year-old at the Welk, and I had never met him, and he just ran to give me a hug. But that's the best part about this job, is what happens for our kids. And it's been my honor and privilege to serve you. And that's it.
Good job.
Thanks, Director Donnelly.
All right, do our director updates. Start with Director Bradshaw.
Okay, I just have a note. So, prior to my serving on the school board, I knew Heidi casually. With both of us being in the education field, our paths would cross occasionally, and we share many mutual friendships. I always knew Dr. Hahn to be a person of integrity and character. She is kind and generous, and always willing to help her family and friends. Having served on the board for the past 1.5 years, I've been honored to serve alongside her and to learn from her as we support Brainerd Public Schools. She is a true champion for the district. She brings compassion and an impressive ability to develop meaningful relationships with our great staff, students, families, and members of the community. She is intelligent, disciplined, knowledgeable, and a true visionary thinker. I have witnessed firsthand her strong leadership skills supporting equity and inclusion. Each and every day, she is dedicated to serving Brainerd Public Schools, always prioritizing our district's mission and goals of student achievement, student and staff safety, fiscal stability, and student and staff well-being. Heidi epitomizes what it means to be a warrior. Heidi is, as she frequently says when celebrating someone, awesomeness in action. We will miss her as our leader, but wish her many blessings in this next journey.
Thank you. Director Donnelly, or anything tonight?
I don't really have anything to say other than thanks, Heidi. It's been fun getting to know you. And everybody should be thinking about Director Ward because he's not in a good spot right now. So hopefully he pulls through everything great and is back to.
Yep, we got a picture right before the board meeting. He looks like he's returning to spunkiness as we speak.
Is he?
Not surprising.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it looked encouraging. He looked like he's probably fuming right now that he's not able to speak, I imagine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Director Spear.
I too wrote a couple things down because I'm better at writing than I am at speaking. But Heidi, I want to honor the fact that you're not just retiring from being our superintendent these last 2 years, but from dedicating 28 or maybe 29 years of your life to our district, our children, our staff, and our community. You've had a profound impact. If there's one word that encapsulates your towering strength, it's relationships. You've always believed in the power of connections, in the magic that happens when we invest in one another. And I've heard you recount this story a few times, that one of your greatest joys is when a mom was anxious about welcoming her child into the world and was going to need services, being there, and then seeing that student graduate many years later. And just as you've witnessed the growth and accomplishments of our students that way, we've had the privilege of watching you invest in our community and our staff in our district. Your leadership has steered us through challenges, and your leadership has helped us celebrate our triumphs. You are a mentor, a friend, an advocate for quality education. To that end, your legacy is one of impact, built on relationships, which has shown us that education goes beyond academics. It is about caring for the whole person and fostering an environment where everyone feels valued and supported. So much gratitude for your gift of service to this district. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to actually jump ahead a little and then I'll come back. I'm going to go to the future meeting dates. I'm not going to read all of them, but I want to, for benefit of those watching and attending, June 21st, there will be a school board retreat, 11 a.m. I believe we secured the room at the Chamber of Commerce. There's a small conference room at the Chamber building. As always, the public is encouraged and welcome to attend. It's if you have never done one, and there's usually like 3 people that go, but it's a very different format where we have casual conversations and really are able to kind of pull free from some of the structure that happens at these meetings. And some of the things that we want to talk about at that retreat are going to be cell phone policy, student representation on the school board, lots of things budget and levy related. You know, and it'll give a chance for Mr. Grant to get acquainted with some of the exec staffs that'll be there presenting on some of those topics for us, but welcome you to do that. Finance committee meeting coming up. Those are also open to the public. Those of you that may have questions about the budget stuff that we talked about tonight, hopefully everybody's as concerned as we are as a board about those issues. We certainly welcome people to come in and offer insight and observe what we're doing. That's the whole point in making those meetings public. Our next regularly scheduled school board meeting is July 8th. And then on July 17th, we have a policy meeting as well. And that one, one of the things we'll talk about at the retreat is ramping up the frequency with which the policy and finance committees meet, perhaps given the budget challenges that we're in and some of the things we want to do from a policy management perspective. And also looking at board representation on those committees, and with Mr. Grant coming in, potentially, you know, shuffling that around a little bit or even enhancing some of the board membership or representation on those committees. So we'll talk about that on the 21st. So that's all the business-related stuff. I'll talk for a minute or 5, and then we'll let Heidi have the last word tonight before we adjourn. I was fortunate enough a few days ago to be able to speak at her going away retirement party, I guess you call it, and gave her fancy warrior blanket. And there were people waiting to speak after me, so I was kind of hurried that night. Now, not so much. I think Sarah probably said it the best of that I could say it, in the sense that we're not here tonight to say goodbye and to celebrate a 2-year stint as a superintendent of a school district. Although from my own personal experience, there's thousands of interactions that have occurred during these last 2 years that I could point to that exemplify your integrity, your passion, your heart. And I guess if there's a word beyond relationships, I think you don't have relationships without 2 other words, and I think they're the 2 that that I see you exhibit day in and day out, and those are trust, in the sense that you build trust with the people around you. I've never encountered you saying one thing and doing another, ever. But the biggest word of all is love. There's a love in everything that you do, and it's funny because it seems like we've been joined at the hip for 20 years, and it's been 2, not even 2. I don't remember a time, I remember coming onto the board, and you and Angie were the COVID ladies. You know, you just sat there and talked about numbers, and that was really all I knew. And if you were at Heidi's retirement party, you'll be sick of this because I talked about it already. But as it happened, we had to go to school open houses. So my first really one-on-one experience with Heidi was at Forest View for orientation night or open house night right before school started. And it was the year that we voted to put the mask back on the kids. So we didn't know what kind of moods people were going to be in coming into the building. And that was a real learning experience for me because Heidi had, I think, the best strategy I've ever seen for diffusing grumpy people. I liken it to a tennis match where you don't wait for the ball to come over. You rush the net. And she was rushing the net. People couldn't even get on the sidewalk, and she was running up there, and, you know, she does that handshake that starts back here and comes all the way forward, and this big grin. There's no way you can be mad at somebody like that. And I was just cleaning up seconds behind her. I was just handing people paper as they came in and just watching her. And I was watching her, and I'm like, you know, I'm this high-energy person. People always talk about how hard I can be to keep up with. And I was like, I had to take like a nap when I got home after being with Heidi. And so it was that moment when I got to know you a little bit as a person, and then shortly thereafter, you became our superintendent. And again, just to put it on the record, as everybody knows, 2 years ago, my vote was for a different candidate for superintendent, but it was not out of any disrespect or dislike for Heidi. It was a philosophical thing. 20 seconds after the board decided to offer you the job, I called you and I offered you my unconditional support. And this board, I think, by and large, has had your back in all things, and you've had ours. You and I have built a special relationship. I'm going to miss that very much. But I'm also looking forward to what that looks like starting July 2nd and see what that looks like. But that 3 decades of service to this district cannot be overlooked. Your impact on thousands and thousands of young lives cannot be overlooked. Your dedication and love for this community and this district cannot be overlooked. You're an amazing human being. We were lucky to have you for all this time, and Godspeed, and go kick some butt with whatever you're doing next.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
So, your turn.
So I'll start with the board, and people have heard me say this when I speak of our board. I really feel like we have the right people at the table at the right time. And our board is truly reflective of our community, and I just know the things that are happening and the great things that will continue to happen are gonna fall on the backs of the people that sit at this table. So it's been a privilege to work with you and learn from you. I'm excited for Superintendent Grant as he steps into this chair and gets the opportunity to work with you, because I do think where we're headed, we have the right people there and ready to take us there. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the time and energy and effort. This is not a task for the lighthearted. So those who think school board will be kind of fun or I should try it, I think you can all go tell them it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hours. And so I'm very grateful to you. I'm extremely grateful to our staff. Like I said, one of the reasons I do this job and love this job is our staff. Our staff do incredible things. I've been blessed with a wonderful leadership team. When I look at our executive team and our directors, hundreds and hundreds of hours that just are never seen, and it's never just 8 hours. I would love to say that our leadership team works 8 hours a day. It is well beyond an 8-hour day. And so I'm very appreciative of them and their endless support. And I'm looking at our community members, and we have had a community that has leaned in and that is willing to continue to lean in and to do the right thing for our kids and make sure we're doing the right things and hold us accountable to them, but then to be amazing. And again, we're so used to being here that we need to hang out with somebody that's new here, because the people that are new to this place, they are just in awe of the phenomenal program we have and the opportunities that exist in Brainerd, Minnesota. And so it's really 28 years. I am a believer you give what you get, and I feel like I've given, but I've gotten so much more back. And it's made my experience here incredible. So I am eternally grateful, and like I said, I look forward to being a community member and supporting the district in that capacity. So thank you for your faith and your support. And again, it's been my honor. I'd be remiss, I'm looking at Christine, who made sure she sat through the board meeting. I'm so grateful for her, because if anybody gets to hear all the sides of after what the day looks like after 14 hours, it's been her. So I'm very grateful that she made sure that she always focused me back on all the, now remember why, and she did that very well. So thank you to everyone for that support, and keep doing great things for our Warriors. I think now we get cookies, right?
Yep. And then DJ's buying beers for everybody afterwards.
I just got back at town at 3 o'clock.
That's perfect
I've
timing
been
then.
in a car
And look,
race, let me tell you, I'm a little tired.
this is the longest agenda and the shortest time that it took. I'm just impressed. That created more time in the schedule just for that. So,
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Spear to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thought Heidi might ex officio do a nay, just so she could hang out a little longer. Hearing no objection.